on?
How's it going?
Good, good. And you?
Pretty good. How was your Christmas?
It's pretty good. Yours?
It was all right.
Yeah.
So, since it's just past Christmas time, I was thinking we could do something that's a little bit on the darker side of Christmas, or really more likely the darker side of Santa Claus. And so I've got about three, and one of them actually came from you. Where do you want to start?
You want to start with the Krampus? I think that's how it's said.
Yeah, yeah, might as well. Um, so according to everything I found, it comes more from the area of Europe around Germany and Austria and Hungary and places like that. And from what I understand, it's around the time that Santa comes, or Saint Nicholas over there. He comes along with him, and instead of getting presents, he snatches up the bad kids and tosses them in a sack and takes them away to his lair, I guess. The thing about it that I thought was actually kind of cool is the depiction of him looks more like some of the more biblical descriptions of Satan.
Yeah.
Have you seen those?
Yeah. Yeah. Just a real good way, it looks like, to scare kids into being good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you always hear like I don't know how it is in other countries, but I know in the U.S. it's if you're good you get presents. If you're bad, Santa leaves you a lump of coal. But I think a lot of kids would be a lot better if oh if you're bad, Santa's best friend is gonna come and stuff you in a bag and take you off to his lair in the middle of the woods and we'll never see you again.
Yeah.
But Grimm's fairy tales came from over that way, and those were all for fairy tales. They were pretty graphic, and I guess more or less were designed to scare kids into being good.
Right.
So I guess it makes sense. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
As far as Grimm's fairy tales goes, for anybody who doesn't realize this, what you read now as like the Little Red Riding Hood or Jack and the Giant Beanstalk is not what the original story was. They were usually a lot more bloody, a lot more gory.
Oh yeah,
There are usually a lot of people that died in those.
yeah, definitely. I actually have a book that's full of them, both in German and also translated to English. And some of them I definitely wouldn't read them to my kids.
Yeah, unless you want to scare them straight, I
Right. Yeah.
guess.
Um, I guess they do a lot of. They actually still celebrate the Krampus figure too. There's a lot of there like festivals and things like that. Have you seen any pictures from those?
Yeah, and it's actually very selectively being celebrated somewhat in the United States, from what I've read. In mainly German communities.
Right. I know that I've noticed that over the past couple years it's actually been making its way into kind of into our mass media sort of. I mean, just this year the TV show Grimm actually had an episode dealing with that, and I thought that was pretty cool. Is
Yeah,
they made him look pretty much like you see in all the pictures if you look him up.
I mean, for anybody who doesn't who hasn't seen this or isn't wanting to actually look it up, he basically just looks like a big, hairy, horned monster. And it's about the best I can describe it. Some of them are dark hair, some of them are light hair. I mean, there's some pretty cool pictures of people dressed up as them. I mean, I'd encourage people to go online and look at it.
Yeah, he's got the sharp teeth and the cloven hooves and stuff like that. And actually, as I was talking a minute ago, I realized that I I have said Grim probably more times in just this first 5 minutes than I have in any other podcast, even when saying my name.
Yeah.
So this one feels a little Grim centric already. So maybe
Yeah.
we we ought to move on. Um, there's another one from I guess from a part of Germany called Belsnickel. Have you heard of that one before?
Yeah, I've read pretty lightly on it. You want to take a lead on it while I try to get my bearings about me about what it is more?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in the German tradition, I think Santa comes more on the 5th or 6th of December, and the kids leave out their shoes and, clean their shoes and stuff like that. And the tradition is that Saint Nick comes by and fills their shoes with candy. And this is more along the lines of what we have here in the U.S., where if you're bad, he might leave coal in their stockings or actually switches so that they can be whipped with them.
Yeah, that's actually very similar to the next one we'll get into, which is Saint Whip, or the Whipping Father. I've said it Saint Whip a few times. But an interesting note on the Belsnickel is that it's actually a big thing in Pennsylvania here in the States. A lot of the Dutch believe in this, or, as far as, we would Santa Claus. It's a similar belief there, and people will dress up as them, especially in the Amish and Dutch communities over there.
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of the traditions from the Netherlands and from Germany and all that came over with people that ended up settling in a lot of Amish communities and stuff like Pennsylvania and even some parts of Ohio and Indiana as well. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on into the Whipping Father, which has a French name that I cannot pronounce. I mean,
Well, I'm not too good into French either.
I speak like just a little bit of French, but I can read less than that. So we'll just go ahead and call him the Whipping Father.
Yeah.
And
But the French name looks it looks, from what I know French, like it's just the literal French translation of that.
right.
But basically he's this guy who accompanies Saint Nicholas, around the world on St. Nicholas's Day, which in the other parts of the world is the 5th or 6th of December, depending on where you're at, which is pretty different from the 25th over here in the States. And he's just basically the guy who will give you coal. I mean, he's like the mild brother of some of the other guys we talked about.
Yeah.
But basically he just gives you coal and will whip children with that have been bad throughout the year. Well, on the other hand, St. Nicholas, Santa Claus will give gifts to those that were well behaved. And this guy is more mainly known around north and eastern France and Belgium and all those areas. But that's pretty much the gist about him.
Yeah, I think just after I started doing research on some of these guys, it seems like our traditions in the U.S. compared with European traditions, where I think most of them were based off of, um, I think the European traditions are far more interesting, and I don't know, it ours feel a little weak compared to what they came from.
Yeah. Ours seem to be very mild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... All right, but do you want to move on to
Yeah, let's.
into miracles?
Yeah, since we covered kind of the darker side of Christmas, I wanted to do something on miracles. And when I went searching for miracles, I found out that if you really want to find miracles or reported miracles, really, they're very Catholic heavy. I mean, everything happens within the Catholic community, it seems. Like,
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I was just hoping for some miracles that weren't related to any religion at all. Something just crazy, awesome, and miraculous happening. But really, what I came up with was kind of like the bigger ones. And as it happens, the first one I came across was called Incorruptibles. And
Right.
have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I hadn't heard by that name before, but I'd seen the phenomenon, on TV on the History Channel
Right.
before. For people that wouldn't know what it is, it's basically when you die, there's two really known sorts of ways that you can be preserved. There's either accidental preservation, which happened, I believe, was in Ireland or Wales or somewhere in the in the peatball where they found the guy that was accidentally mummified into it.
Right.
It happens in areas that are particularly dry or have salt in the soil or whatever.
Or places that are really cold, like up in the mountains in the Himalayas and stuff like that.
Correct. They actually find people a lot in the Andes Mountains
Yeah.
in South America, where the Inca people would have sacrifices up there, and I mean they're still finding people up there. I mean from hundreds of years ago now. But and then another one is known or like intentional preservation, which is your mummification, your embalming, and all of that. Well, really, there's another third one that they haven't found too many examples of, but it's where these incorruptibles come from, where they find these people, they exhume these bodies, and they're completely, other words, perfect. Their skin is so soft, usually moist. They're not decomposed at all. Usually their hair and nails have kept growing. They have flowing blood if they get cut, and with these other types of embalming and all that, usually when the grave is disturbed, the air or moisture enters in wherever they're buried, they will start to decompose rapidly. And some of these people have been taken out and have not decomposed at all since they've been touched.
I know some of them have actually been, when they go on display in churches and stuff like that, because I think most of the people that come up incorruptible like that have actually been given saint status. So that they'll take them and they'll put them on display in various churches, but some of them have actually been cut up into pieces and having their pieces taken to different churches. And even after that's happened, I mean, you can see a little bit of aging as you normally would, but there's no real decomposition there.
Right, and sometimes even with that quicklime, which is a decomposing agent, even with that put on them, they don't decompose.
Right. I've got a link that I'm gonna put up on the blog page when we post this, and it's got pictures of just all sorts of just a bunch of the incorruptibles, I guess. And some of them have been make-upped a little bit. Some of them have a wax coating or something like that, sort of to help preserve them. But all in all, I mean, for some of these people being dead 200-300 years, there shouldn't be anything left, and they're all in really, really good condition, which is, I mean, in better condition than like your old Egyptian mummies, and those are mostly in really good condition.
I mean, I honestly just can't find any explanation for this. I mean, some of these people have died of diseases that should have sped up decomposition. I mean, are buried in ways that they should have been long gone by now, and I mean, they still look like they're freshly dead.
Right. I read one that I don't remember which one it was though, but I read an account of one where the lady had died and they dug her up a few years later and she was in perfect condition and they reburied her and then they dug her up again and she was still in perfect condition. So they buried her again and years later they dug her up and she was still in perfect condition. And then after that they made her a saint and put her on display.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what I read was that in order for somebody to be declared a saint, they had to be incorruptible for a long time. I think they did away with that now.
That's not quite it. It's one of the qualifications for being canonized.
Okay.
Basically, if you did nothing else really special in your life, but you're incorruptible, they'll take a closer look into you and see, what kind of person you were, and if you were, a very strict Catholic, and they might find something that wasn't highly talked about at the time that happened with you, and then they'll make you a saint. They'll canonize you.
Okay. But one of the things that they would do though is they would bury somebody and then dig them up again to like I think the standard amount of time was 5 years just to check. Do you have any theories on that? I mean, I've thought about it and I can't really come up with anything. I mean, it happens different parts of the world, people from different backgrounds. The only thing that really stays the same is that they were very religious, but even then, some of them didn't come from a mainly Catholic background, which is what a lot of people try to say is the common factor.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I can't really wrap my head around what it could be. The church's theory is these people are usually the ones that are seen later with some kind of prophecy, like the Virgin Mary. I read a whole list of them. I can't think of anybody right now, but basically people would reappear later and people would see that would get and they would carry some kind of prophecy with them or whatever. Those are usually the ones that are later dug up and they're like, oh well, this happened, and then they'll canonize it.
Okay, so normally if somebody appears in a prophecy or a vision or something, then they go and dig them up and to check, right?
I don't know if they do it to check, but I mean they might make the link afterwards. I don't know
Mm.
really exactly how they go about that, but that's the church's explanation for it, is that they would have to be preserved.
Right.
You know, that God would have to preserve these bodies for them to come back and look like that. And I mean apparently not scare people away.
Right. I think maybe we might want to come back to this sometime and see if we can't get some sort of I don't know, maybe somebody from the Catholic Church that could talk about this. I mean, we've got, just in my area, I've got like 10 Catholic churches, so maybe I could track down somebody that would be knowledgeable on some of that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean I live in a very Eastern European, you know, we have a Ukrainian village and Polish village out here. I mean, all in the same little city I live in. So there's, I mean, a Catholic church pretty much every 20 feet,
Oh, yeah.
it seems like. So I'll see if I can't get a hold of somebody and try to write down an interview or something.
Right. Since we're on miracles, stigmata. What do you think about stigmata?
It's a medical disease, pretty much. I mean, it would be a disease that affects you negatively, I suppose, but it's seen as a miracle also. It's basically where you bleed from the eyes. I'm correct in that, right? I'm not.
Bleeding from the eyes is one of the signs. Mostly it's associated with people develop the same wounds that they believe
Yeah.
Christ had. Sometimes holes through their palms and their feet, or sometimes holes through their wrists, or bleeding from the forehead. Sometimes bleeding from the side where Jesus was supposed to have been stabbed by a spear. But
Yeah.
bleeding from the eyes, I think there was a lady not too long ago that was most recently famous case was she was bleeding from the eyes quite a bit.
It seems like bleeding from the eyes. I saw in a younger guy also who was suffering from the rest of that also, from his hands and his feet and all that. What do you think might cause all that?
Well, actually, when I was doing research on it, I found one explanation that fits one case at least of a girl that had a condition that was more like a severe form of hypochondria, where she could make herself bleed from various parts of her body if she got really upset. I mean, for people who don't know, hypochondria is where you hear of a disease and you think you have it, and she was actually able to manifest it if she got upset enough. They were able to coax her into displaying symptoms of stigmata, bleeding from different parts of her body where there's actually no injuries or cuts or anything like that. I think if you want to take the whole religious thing out of it, which I try to look at things from both sides of the spectrum, and religiously it's a great sign of faith, I guess. But if you want to look at it from the other side, I would think it's more of a mind over matter type of thing. It would just demonstrate the very impressive power that your mind has and how it can affect things around you.
That girl you were talking about, I was just thinking while you're talking about that. That sounds like the world's worst superpower.
Right, yeah. You can bleed on
Yeah,
command or
yeah, I can make myself have these afflictions, but I can't really do anything else.
I'm so angry I have dysentery.
Yeah.
But I found a case where Italian priest for the longest time they said he was possessed by the devil and he was evil, and they accused him of having sex in the confessionals with people, and then he started having stigmata. You know, his hands would bleed and he would bleed from his side, and he said that it embarrassed him so much that he would wear mittens when he did his sermon, and he actually bled every day for like 50 years until he died. That's the one you'll see the most if you Google stigmata. But I think there was an argument for that one that he was using sulfuric acid or something like that to burn the holes in him to keep them bleeding. But
Yeah.
I don't know if somebody would be able to do that every day for 50 years. I mean, you'd really have to want to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah, you think he could just slip into obscurity there and not really have to worry about it anymore.
Right. Yeah, for like every day for 50 years though, he's got journals and stuff like that, and eventually they went from thinking he was crazy and possessed by the devil and actually made him a saint eventually. I don't know how that flip happened, because I mean, if they're accusing you one day of having sex in the confessional and then the next day you're a saint, I'm not. He would have to have performed some sort of miracle that I wasn't able to find, I guess. I don't know.
Well, something that can kind of go off of that, which I mean, again, isn't really following on our topic today, but we kind of rarely do that anyhow.
Right.
We, I know from time to time we'll drop movies
Oh
out
yeah.
where we for our listeners to watch or whatever, and one of them that reminded or something, a movie that reminded me or what you said reminded me of a movie called The Rite. Um, it's about a Catholic priest who goes over to the Vatican and learns all about exorcisms.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen that.
While he's over there, the priest that's teaching him actually gets possessed at one point, and he has to call up the Stephen by himself. It's a pretty good movie based on a true story. The priest came on and did an interview somewhere at some point I read about, and he said it was very true to what happened, except for the other priest either didn't get possessed or the possession wasn't as bad as what they said.
Huh. I'm gonna have to look that up. Yeah, I've seen the movie, but I haven't seen the interview.
Yeah, he said that everything that happened with the lady
Mhm.
actually happened,
Oh wow.
which is pretty crazy if you remember what happened to her in the movie. I don't want to give anything
Right,
away.
right. Yeah, I remember most of it. Yeah. Another movie though, actually, I want to say it came from the '90s that I remember seeing, was actually called Stigmata, and if I'm correct, it had one of the Arquette sisters was in it, and she would develop bleeding. I think one scene she was bleeding from her eyes, and another one she was bleeding from her hands. And I think that one followed more along the possession line also, but
Yeah.
something about it, caused her to have the stigmata symptoms. But I don't remember a whole lot of that one. I think I watched that one when I was, well, watched it when it first came out. So if it was early to mid 90s, I probably wasn't paying too much attention.
It came out in '99 and had Patricia Arquette in it.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember some of it, but not much of it.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I'm just looking it up now.
Yeah, I've seen so many horror movies that sometimes they just run together for me. So.
Yeah. I've seen probably thousands of movies. So, I just watch movies all the time. So a lot of them run together for me also. Trying to get back on topic here.
Yeah.
I think our last topic for today is the crying statue.
Yeah. The thing that got me, that I found as soon as I started looking, actually, was that there's a town called Reading, Ohio, which is like, I don't know, I want to say 15 to 20 minutes drive, maybe a little more than that. And in 2011, they actually had a couple of crying statues, and I had never heard of it. But basically, what they had there was they had a Jesus statue and a Mary statue, and they were both crying. and I guess nobody was ever able to debunk it. I don't know if they're still there today, but I was thinking if they are, I might have to plan a trip up to see it.
Yeah.
But I mean, normally when you get the crying statues, a lot of times they're crying tears, um, sometimes scented oil, sometimes even blood, or just something that looks like blood. I know a couple times in some of the bleeding statues, they've actually tested it. In both cases, they were type O positive blood.
Yeah, that's fine. That's my blood type. But it seems like a lot of these that I hear um, are typically out of South America, of Southern North America, those areas, Central America.
I think those are
Um,
well, I think those are places that are most very dominantly Catholic.
yeah,
I,
they're very dominantly Catholic, going all the way back to when the Spaniards came across and instilled that into those people.
right.
But I mean, a lot of these that I also read about are turned out to be, some priest that's dumping liquid into some hidden vessel inside it
Oh, sure, yeah.
for whatever ends to make people come to his church and donate or whatever.
Yeah, I know a lot of them are a lot of them can be proven fake, but there's some, and there's one in Mexico, I believe, where the statue was crying actual tears. You know, they were you could taste it and it was salty. Some people would taste it, I guess.
Yeah.
And they were collecting it in cotton balls and passing it out to people. And there would be people walking up on crutches or in wheelchairs, and after a few minutes they'd be able to walk away without them.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know if that's like an actual miracle, or if it's kind of like our something like our televangelists, where they'd get people up on stage
Yeah.
and they'd force out the demons, and then they'd walk around, or they'd be able to see or whatever. It's kind of hard to tell with some people.
Yeah. I mean, I really dislike the fact that they do that because, I mean, it gives a lot of people that have disabilities hope that pretty much isn't there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's just, it seems very inhumane to me. I mean, to give somebody that much hope
Oh yeah.
when really you're just trying to get their money.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's even today there's still people like, if I'm up in the middle of the night and I'm flipping through channels on the weekend, I'll still see people. I'll see a guy trying to sell I guess they call it miracle water or something like that, but it's just a little vial of water. It costs you like $50 and they'll ship it to you, and it's supposed to heal you or something, but just it's I don't know, it just seems like I don't know, it's like the lowest form you could take with anything religious, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
It's just
And
really
if
bad.
anybody out there, I mean, a lot of people out there that listen to us are probably into ghost hunting and stuff like
Sure.
that. For those of you who want to get some holy water or whatever to bless yourselves, which is, by the way, not a bad idea to do, don't buy it online. And that's just the biggest thing I can tell you. I see that online. I saw it online a lot when I used to be into that stuff. Just get a small glass bottle or something and go to your local Catholic church and ask a priest there to get you some or to bless some water for
Oh
you.
yeah.
They'll usually gladly do it for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like I guess it would almost be like their duty to, if you come in and ask them to bless some water for you, it's like they have to do it almost. I
Right.
mean, it's kind of one of those things that they do.
Yeah, it's like going to confessional prayer.
Right.
I'm not Catholic. I'm not really strictly religious in any way, but I mean, if I walked into one, I don't think a priest would ever turn me away.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But crying statues, what do you think? I mean, is it possible?
It's just one of those things that human manipulation has made me just say, nah, it seems like there's just too much of relying on other people for it to be real.
Right.
Of relying on other people's honesty, which is something that in today's day and age, you just really can't do anymore.
Right, yeah. The more I think about it, I mean, it's a statue. It's solid something. Should be solid, I would think. I mean, I guess the fact that there would be no place for it to come from, or shouldn't be a place for it to come from, would be what would make it miraculous. But at the same time, I don't think I could buy it.
Yeah, and it's just not one of those ones that I buy either.
For crying statues, we say no.
Right.
Stigmata, maybe.
Yeah, that's one of those plausible ones. I mean, it's very, I mean, for people who, I mean, I've never even heard of that kind of hypochondria where you can actually make yourself bleed. But I mean, for the people who don't have that, I mean, that's very specific. Those are very specific spots for you to bleed out of.
Right. I know a lot of the times, depending on which version of the crucifix somebody has grown up with, because some of them have the nails in the hands and some of them have the nails in the wrist. I think
Right.
a lot of times that corresponds to where the stigmata happens. So,
Right.
I mean, depending on what image they're used to seeing is directly affects what symptoms they get, I think. And I think that's the thing that makes it more of a mind over matter thing for me.
Yeah. And then, of course, we got our fairy tale
Right.
ones which aren't, obviously aren't true, but they're pretty fun to think
Right.
about. Maybe take your kids before Christmas next year.
Sure.
Come in line.
The Incorruptibles, though, that one, honestly, I think that one defies explanation.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I read about this before, when I was younger, and I couldn't figure out an explanation then. I can't figure out one now. It's just one of those things.
I think I'd like it if we could get like some scientists or something to be able to get in and just check out some of these bodies. But I mean, anymore, I think they're under strict lock and key, and you definitely don't hear about anybody else being exhumed in you know in an incorruptible state.
Yeah,
It just doesn't
actually, I think one
happen
happened like
anymore.
2003.
Really?
I think it's the last
Yeah.
time it happened. But I mean, it's not a very common thing anymore.
Right.
I mean, it's like the most recent one, but I mean, before that, it's been several years. So I mean, that pretty much wraps it up altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. Since New Year's is coming up, and we won't actually be doing an episode the week after New Year's because it's on a 2-week schedule. Do you have any resolutions you're trying to implement?
No, not really. I've just been focusing on working.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, just trying to balance all that. And
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and call it a day.
all right, real quick
Sure.
though, um, just wanted to share a little story with you. I mean, I told you the other week that my grandpa passed.
Yeah.
Well, the other night I had the strangest dream about him, which I mean usually I don't chalk up dreams to too much, but I mean this was just stuck out to me as so weird, and it woke me up. I mean it was such a weird dream. I was in some house. I don't remember what house I was in, but I came down the stairs, and it was like those stairs that come down, but the house isn't like quite long enough, so there's a little landing, and it'll go down another 2 or 3 steps at a 90-degree angle to them. Well, I was coming down these steps, and he was standing in the corner of a landing there like that, and he was just staring at me, like with this really blank expression on his face. Almost, I mean, I can't even really describe it. In my dream, I realized, I knew in my dream that he was dead and all that, so I kind of freaked out and turned around and, went to go down the stairs real fast, and like as soon as I turned around, he was right back in front of me with that same look on his face, like 2 inches from my face. And, right then I woke up. It was just a very weird experience for me, a very weird dream.
Wow.
Usually I don't put a whole lot of stock into dreams, but that was just one of those ones that, just maybe, stop. Because usually I don't dream about, deceased, loved ones and all that.
Right.
That was just one of those weird ones. I don't know, maybe we can do a show in the future about that kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. We've
streams and all that.
there's plenty of stuff we can we can
Oh
do
yeah,
shows
no.
on. So I don't think we can ever just, you know.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever really run out of
Yeah.
ideas. Um, have you thought any more about doing a live show?
I have actually. I tested out TalkShoe today,
Hmm.
and just how easy it would be to connect to TalkShoe. Unless you have a paid subscription to Skype, you wouldn't be able to connect through Skype.
Yeah,
TalkShoe actually offers software that you can use to connect, but you have to have an account through TalkShoe, which is free. But
yeah,
it doesn't work on either of my computers. But I had my son try on his, and he was able to connect. So I guess it's kind of like a hit and miss type of thing.
okay,
You can call in with a phone, and we did that using Google Voice too. If you can dial out using Google Voice, but I think Google Voice is only free in the U.S. and Canada. So if there's international listeners, I wouldn't know what to tell them. Uh,
yeah,
uh, there's a couple different VoIP programs out there that can connect, but they all take a little bit of messing with to get them working right. And then in the end, the sound quality wasn't actually great. So I don't know if that's what I'm going to end up doing, or if I'm going to maybe try to find something else. Um, if anybody's listening and they have any suggestions, I'm open to suggestions always. But yeah, a live show is definitely still on the table. I'm still very interested in doing that.
yeah. Just let me know so I can get the word out there. I'm still on the sites I'm on.
Oh yeah, I mean we'll have to. I mean I'm sure we'll give advance notice, enough notice so that people can, we'll get people interested and people can be ready, and anybody that wants to be there can be there.
Yeah, it's definitely an idea I want to do. I might have some people in my family call in,
Oh,
whatever, with their experiences, because I mean, as I've talked about before, my family has a lot of activity,
uh,
and that's that sort of area.
yeah, the more the merrier.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you get going. I think they're cooking dinner upstairs. So.
Alrighty, I'll go ahead and I will talk to you next time.
All right. I'll see you
All
later.
right, take it
Or
easy.
talk to you later.